Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk about an intriguing aspect of Isnad, specifically hidden breaks. This is the first slide of our presentation titled Hidden Breaks in Isnad. Over the next few slides, we'll explore what these breaks are, why they matter, and how they impact our understanding of traditional narratives. So, let's dive in and uncover the details together. The word mudelas comes from the verb dalasa, which literally means to hide defects in goods from a buyer. In technical terms, it refers to concealing a defect in the sanad, or chain of narration, and beautifying the outer appearance of the narration. Now, this concept can be further divided into two main groups. First, we have tadlis as sanad. This occurs when a narrator narrates something he did not hear directly from his teacher, but implies it by using phrases like he said, or from, often omitting weak narrators in the chain through ambiguous terminology. This form, also called tadlis at taswiya, is considered the worst kind of tadlis, and scholars involved in it are generally viewed as weak. The second type is tadlis ash-shayuk. Here, the narrator reports a hadith from a teacher, but refers to him by a nickname, an unknown name, or a characteristic, rather than his actual name. This form is viewed as less severe because no actual omission occurs in the chain, but it still causes difficulty because it makes it harder to trace the narrator's credibility and assess the overall authenticity of the hadith. Some scholars believe that anyone practicing any form of tadlis should be considered weak and untrustworthy. Others, however, argue that if the mudelis explicitly states that he heard the narration, using terms like samatu, then his narration can be accepted. But if ambiguous terms like "n" are used, then the narration is more questionable. Understanding these distinctions helps us evaluate the reliability of narrations and the integrity of the transmission chain, which is central to our overall goal of authenticating hadiths. Let's take a closer look at what technically means in this context. Essentially, it refers to a situation where someone narrates something they did not directly hear from the person they're claiming to have heard it from. Instead, they might be using terminology that implies they heard it directly from that person, even though they didn't. Now, when we compare Mursal Kafi and Tadlis as sanad, the key difference becomes clearer. In the case of Mursal Kafi, the narrator reports from someone they did not study under, meaning the chain of transmission is broken or incomplete. On the other hand, with Tadlis as sanad, the narrator is actually reporting from their teacher, so the chain is more direct and reliable. This leads us to an important point about the strength of narration. A mursal narration is generally considered weak because of this missing link. Once we identify that this omission is clear and definite, the narration is then classified as munqati, indicating a break in the isnad or chain of transmission. Now, I want to highlight the concept of hidden generalization, specifically in Mursal Kafi. It's a subtle point, but it's crucial because it shows how sometimes these omissions can be overlooked or hidden, affecting the authenticity of the narration without immediately obvious signs. So, understanding these differences helps us evaluate the reliability of various narrations and the overall strength of the chain in our studies. It's all about paying attention to these details to ensure we're accurately assessing the transmission process. Let's start by understanding what a mu'annan is. This is a type of hadith where the narrator relates it using the preposition, an Arabic tain, Arabic noon, meaning from, but without specifying that he was directly informed. This is an important distinction in our study of hadith chains. According to the majority of hadith scholars, including those specializing in fiqh and usul, the mu'annan is considered muttasil, or connected, if certain conditions are met. First, the narrator who relates the chain in the anan form should not be a mudelis, meaning he shouldn't be known for ambiguous or suspicious reporting practices. Second, all the transmitters connected by an, that is, those who are linked through this from, must have been contemporaries. They should have lived during the same period, ensuring a real connection. Some scholars, however, like Imam al-Bukhari and Ali ibn al-Madini, added a third condition, that the meetings between the narrator and his teacher be conclusively established. If we cannot verify these meetings, then such narrations are considered broken, unless proven otherwise. Now, let's look at the Mayanan, which is a hadith where the conjunction Arabic hamzata talif, Arabica, Arabic nun, Arabica, Arabic shada ana, that is used throughout the Sanad. The classification of Mayanan is similar to that of Mayanan, and understanding this helps us in evaluating the strength of these narrations. It's also important to recognize that Mayanan and Mayanan can fall into weakness if the narrator who used this term was known for tadlils, meaning if he was prone to ambiguous reporting. In such cases, the chain would be considered broken. However, if the narrator wasn't known for tadlils and had learned from the source from whom he narrated, even if we don't have explicit proof that he learned that specific hadith from him, but there's a possibility, say, they lived in the same city and period, then we might consider the isnad as unbroken. So, to summarize, understanding these terms and conditions helps us evaluate the authenticity of hadith chains accurately. It's all about the reliability of the transmitters and the clarity of their connections. Now, let's take a closer look at Isnad summarization. This is a key concept in understanding how we can efficiently evaluate and improve the reliability of hadiths. Essentially, Isnad refers to the chain of narrators who transmit the hadith from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to us. Summarization, in this context, involves analyzing and condensing this chain to assess its strength and authenticity. What's important here is that by summarizing the Isnad, we can quickly identify any gaps or weaknesses in the chain, such as missing narrators or questionable transmitters, that might affect the overall authenticity of the hadith. This process helps scholars and students of knowledge to focus their efforts on verifying the most critical parts of the chain. Connecting this to our broader theme, effective summarization of Isnad, is vital for preserving the integrity of prophetic teachings. It allows us to approach hadiths with a systematic method, ensuring that we uphold the highest standards of accuracy and trustworthiness in our studies. Now, let's look at some of the obvious breaks that can occur in an isnad, or chain of transmission. These breaks are important because they can affect the reliability of the hadith. First, we have the mursal. This happens when a successor transmits a hadith directly from the Prophet, Piba, dropping the companion who actually heard it from him. It's like skipping a step in the chain, which can sometimes make the hadith less authentic. Next is the malak. This is when one or more authorities are omitted, or the entire chain is deleted at the beginning. Imagine starting a story halfway through, you miss the context and the full connection. Then there's the munqati. This occurs when a single link in the chain is missing somewhere along the way. It could be in the middle or at any point, breaking the continuous link of transmission. Lastly, we have the muddle. This is a bit more severe, where two or more consecutive links are missing in the chain. Think of it as a gap of two or more steps, which significantly impacts the chain's integrity. Understanding these types of breaks helps us assess the strength and authenticity of a hadith. They remind us to pay close attention to the isnad when studying Islamic texts, ensuring we rely on authentic sources. Welcome to the final slide, where we wrap up our discussion on isnad, the hidden breaks in the chain of narration. Here, we see a table that defines some key concepts related to these breaks. First, we have mudalas, which refers to a hidden defect in the isnad. Essentially, it's when there's an omission or ambiguity that can affect the authenticity of the narration. Next, tadlis as sanad is a form of concealment where a narrator doesn't openly claim he heard the hadith from his teacher, but implies it by saying, he said, or from, often deleting a weak narrator between two strong ones. This subtlety can sometimes hide issues in the chain. Then we have tadlis as shayuk. This occurs when a narrator relates a hadith from a teacher but refers to him using a nickname or a vague characteristic, rather than his real name. Interestingly, this form was less disliked because it didn't omit any part of the chain, but it still could be confusing. Moving on, mursal kafi involves someone narrating a hadith from a teacher he did not study directly. The key difference from tadlis is that, in mursal kafi, The narrator is not a student of the person he's narrating from, which raises questions about the chain's reliability. Finally, Ma'anan refers to when a narrator uses terms like an or inna without explicitly stating how he received the hadith. This subtle language can sometimes obscure the exact nature of the transmission. Overall, understanding these concepts helps us evaluate the integrity of a hadith's chain and ensure the authenticity of what we transmit.